Hello, hello. Today I have an interview with Donna, a very special lady in my network whom I met a few years ago, but it feels like a lot longer.
Yeah, in a very nice way by the sounds of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've known each other for a few years now, but we've certainly bonded over like-minded, um, should we say, championship or advocacy, particularly in this workplace mental health space. So I thought I'd throw it over to you, Donna, to share with us a little bit more about, tell us about yourself.
All right, cool. Thanks, Ali. It's such a pleasure to be here. So, oh gosh, at the moment, I have a business called Mentally Wealthy, and I partner with leaders, HR professionals, and safety professionals to help reduce the prevalence, impact, and risk of poor mental health in the workplace. And that allows them to sleep at night knowing that their people are safer and more engaged and even more productive. And it's been quite a journey to get to this point. So I have a background as a HR professional, and while employed as a HR professional in 2012, I experienced a mental health crisis, which ultimately led to me making a very significant attempt on my life. And I was one of those people that you would least expect. People were very shocked. And I find that that's often the case. I had a loving family, lots of friends, a very successful career. But yeah, a workplace challenge actually triggered some old stuff of mine that led to an unraveling, and yeah, ultimately me taking that action. And it's been quite a journey since that point. I left my corporate role. I became a career coach and loved that work, did that for about 7 years. And probably about 5 years after my attempt, I started to just where it felt relevant, talk about my experience. Before that, it had been something that my partner and I decided just to keep private because I wanted to be the person who told my son rather than hearing it from anyone else. And he was only 2 when it occurred. And so, I knew it would be a while. And also, I think there's a lot of shame around suicide as well. I know that my partner found it very, very difficult. And when I started to talk about it, he actually was extremely uncomfortable. And that, I guess, those conversations and yeah, my journey took me down the path of my story being shared in an episode of Australian Story, which then led to me being approached to speak and becoming a mental health first aid instructor, and yeah, eventually to the place that I'm in now.
Yes, you are a superstar in my mind, Donna. Just it's it's such a fantastic success story. Like I know myself too. I go at public speaking. Like there's so much power in the fact that you are living proof that there's hope, right? And that change can be implemented. And
Yeah.
I believe we need to celebrate that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really do think it's a story of hope and yeah, that it's like you can bounce back from anything. We truly
Mhm.
can write new chapters of our life. And I absolutely am thriving. Am I thriving every single day? No. Do I have
Mm,
challenges? Yes, like everyone else, but I've
mhm.
got such a well still stocked toolkit to navigate those. And
Yes.
um, it's great now. I can get myself back on track.
Fantastic. No, look, everything that you're saying, I 100% resonate with. And um, it is an interesting time for workplaces. And I, for one, am actually
Mm,
pleased to see that there's a lot more opportunity now for advocacy to raise awareness about psychological hazards that can impact mental well-being. And hey, let's skill up community for this mental literacy stuff, because the more we can do that, the more we can help support others in a time of need. And Of course, part of that journey as well is setting expectations. Like, I've personally found a few conversations recently about this help seeking pathway being quite clunky. Person has to want help, but also the system has to be able to deliver. And sometimes I find, it's important to set those expectations that I may be ready for help now, but we could be needing another 6 weeks or 6 months to put people in the right hands, and doesn't always suit everyone. And it's so many variables out there, but the more knowledge there is out there, the more we can help inform people along that journey.
Yeah, totally. I'm really excited about all of the different opportunities there are for support too. Like
Yeah.
things like the websites you can get on, whether it's Beyond
Mhm.
Blue or MindSpot or Mood Gym. You can get
Mhm.
onto these sites that can be great for tiding you over
Yeah.
till you can get to a professional counselor or psychologist or whoever it is. But actually, for some personalities, they're just great as well.
Yep.
People like to, take control of that stuff themselves, and
Yeah.
they've got a great evidence base, and
Mhm.
it's really encouraging how much is out there now for people.
Yeah, for sure. And there are some services that they can jump on and get 100% online and zero waiting list, and there really is hope and excitement in terms of there is change. And yes, we can focus on the statistics and we can focus on the problems, but hang on, don't blind yourself from I don't know, just Beyond Blue started in the 80s, right? It wasn't that long
Yeah.
ago,
Wow.
and we're
Yeah.
still the generation that has been exposed to it, whereas our forefathers before us didn't have any structures in place. So how amazing. Mm.
Yeah. It's
Cool.
really.
So, my question to you, bringing it back to the campaign, is
Mm.
why does this particular subject resonate with you? Because we're talking about building resilient workforces. I know you do stuff in the workplace, but why does that topic resonate for you?
Look, I just think that there are so many people struggling in our communities, and many of them are employed. That they're in workplaces. It makes sense to empower and equip these people at work because so many of them are there. And then often people see their colleagues more than they see some of their friends and family. Yeah, that's
Mm.
a big part of our lives. And I think also too, just that, as businesses have got busy and businesses have grown, often organizations are just not aware of the risks, the hazards that the way work is created, or the way work, the systems and processes that work can actually be hazardous. Like they
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
As you know, I've just come back from the Australian New Zealand workplace mental health symposium. So,
Yep, yep.
there was a lot of conversation about psychosocial hazards. And,
Mm.
there was actually I love a model that was presented around thinking of the different personas in businesses.
Okay.
So,
Yep, yep.
you've sort of got your early adopters, and then you've got so
Okay.
they're the companies that were already thinking about and
Yes.
anticipating this, getting mental health first aiders trained, 5 or 10 years ago.
Mm.
And then you have the well-being champions. They're sort of doing a bit in the well-being space, but maybe
Mm.
not as focused on the psychosocial hazard side of things.
True.
Maybe not as systematic around, that was strategic around the well-being stuff. And then you had the newcomers, and these are the
Mhm.
people that are actually, they haven't got any choice anymore, right? Because the
Mhm.
legislation is meaning that they actually have to take action. They
It's
really
changing.
do need to
Mhm.
be proactive in
Yep,
creating psychologically safe workplaces. So
yep,
yeah,
totally.
coming out of that, I'm like, yes, I just want to go out and serve more people and help them to
Gotcha.
understand. And I'm feeling like HR is such an awesome background for this
Yes,
field because
totally.
so many of our HR practices also they're there's an opportunity to weave good mental health into
Mm,
those, the way we design jobs, the
yes,
way we recruit them. There's just so many touch points, um, yeah, for mental health and the
totally.
potential hazards. So I'm just like,
Mhm.
wow, it actually has worked out beautifully.
Yeah, it's so good to see your passion and excitement and energy from the conference. Um, there's just a few things running through my head just from
Yep.
what you were speaking about is yeah, definitely like the psychosocial hazards we're actually seeing at the moment being reoccurring patterns with workplaces coming to us for help is client aggression
Oh,
and increased workloads, which obviously can lead to stress
workload's big.
and burnout. The
Yes.
client aggression one is also it's just a reflection of where we're at in community, because people have been locked down, there's uncertainty in the world and unresolved trauma stuff popping up left, right, and center, and then an accountant has to deal with it. Does an accountant have
Yes.
these skills? Just giving people some basic frameworks to help embed wellness. It's not genius, it's common sense, but if you haven't been exposed to it you might not know. So that's what excites me from what you said.
Yeah.
And I also just wanted to share a study. There was I think it was in 2020, we were working with one of the union bodies in New South Wales, and one of the guest speakers was actually from the police sector. And I thought it was interesting. The study said of the 100 cases of work cover claims under the mental health space, um, you would think that most of the incidents would be exposure to a traumatic event because it's police, right? So it's a homicide or
Yes.
something dramatic. But actually, 30% of the cases was something extreme like that, leaving 70% of other cases leading back to workplace cultures. And a majority of that was leaders and managers not necessarily handling, the people well in amongst it all. And of the 70%, 50% of those cases were avoidable or preventable.
Yeah.
We are we are just getting things wrong, but like what you mentioned, HR is a fantastic field because put your people first and you'll be mitigating some of these risks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's really important not to be putting it all back onto the individual, because I think you talked about, resilient workers, but I
Mm,
think we need to have resilient workplaces as well, resilient
totally.
businesses. Yeah, we
Uh, it,
can't
mm,
we can't just expect to, like, give people resilient skills and then throw a whole bunch of hazards at them. That's not what we want. Let's look at it
mm,
really holistically. How does the workplace contribute? How do workplaces create
yeah,
both psychologically and physically safe places?
yeah,
Uh,
totally. And you can't have one without another. And, feel free to contest me. But
yeah.
I think what starts to happen though is like individual different perspectives, but we personally like to work with the workplaces that can see it from the holistic perspective. Like we've had some issues with, shit's hitting the fan, come and save us, and they just
Mm,
want band-aid solutions, and that is short term. We want people to understand that prevention is possible, but you need medium to long-term plans with it, you know.
yeah.
You need to
Yes.
put your people first, but it starts with your leadership and your culture for sure. Um,
Totally.
but I totally resonate with you when you mentioned the different groups of those that were the early phases that were
Yeah.
putting in bands of mental health literacy. Some of the laws have certainly changed in different states, making them have
Mm,
to tighten up their socks a little sooner. But then there's that need for the other states and territories to be doing it anyway. Just because it's not mandatory yet doesn't mean you can't put the wellness
yeah.
strategies in place.
Yeah, let's go for best practice instead. Yes,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, there was a lot of talk about the new code
Yep.
for psychologically safe workplaces that coming in this year, and the hope that that's then going to flow through to all the states as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure. I know New South Wales and ACT And is it WA already have some of these things in place? So
Yeah.
Queensland not yet.
Apparently not far though, from what I'm hearing, not far
Yes,
away.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Donna, tell me what you've told me about your story. You've told me
Mm,
why this subject resonates with you. Tell me what you do. Pretend I know nothing about your services, etc. So
okay.
share with us like how you can help. What are the programs or service offerings you can deliver?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting because I sort of started off with the speaking, that's a primary I guess offering that I have. And I regularly come and do keynotes within organizations, and then uh starting now to sort of speak at conferences again too, because that's obviously been a bit quieter in the last couple of years. And I love that work. I absolutely do. I feel alive when I'm on stage. And what I sort of realized at one stage though was, a keynote is great, but and I know that what I share, it's actually saved lives. I know that,
Mm,
like Ali, I've had somebody, I spoke to a group of 80 leaders, and this was actually over 3 years ago, probably close
mhm.
to 4. And, I spoke about asking the direct question. And that, that
Yeah,
is one of the ways. Are you thinking of killing
yeah.
yourself? Are you thinking of ending your life? And I
Mm,
learned later that one of the leaders in that room became worried about her son in the next little while, and
mm.
asked if he was suicidal, and he was 17 years old, and he said, yes, I am, I'm having those thoughts. And
Mm.
um he was on some medication for acne that was causing, it was a side
Poor.
effect, right? And so they were able to get him back to the doctor and get that medication changed, and he
Mm.
was fine. But when I heard that, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, yes, this is why we need
Mhm.
the people to have these skills.
Yeah.
And another friend I found out who was suicidal, and I was like, oh my goodness, what happened? And, what did you do? And she said, I just remember you saying when you spoke, you must reach out to someone. And so I
Yeah.
did. And I'm like, yes, this is why I do what I do, but
Mm.
a keynote, it's short, and I was like, I really want to be deeper. I really want to
Mm.
be able to make more of a difference, reach more people, but go deeper as well.
Yeah.
How do you have the conversation, and how do we help those skills to stick? And so I became a mental health first aid instructor, and and love it.
Mhm, mhm.
And have also developed some of my own programs around mental health awareness, and a resilience mini workshop. And then
Mm.
I became accredited in an amazing resilience school called Resilience at Work a couple of
Yep.
years ago. And the reason I did that was because while I love mental health first aid, for me, it's the PPE level of the hierarchy of controls. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I want to be upstream. I want
Gotcha.
less people to actually need mental health first aid. And so
Mm.
working with this tool is amazing. It's got an incredible evidence base, and people can do an assessment and see where their resilience is right now in relation to 7 domains that have been shown in studies to create good workplace resilience. And yeah, I just love it. And so you can actually have that debriefed individually, or
Mhm.
someone like me, I'm a one to many person, I've realized now. And so I run workshops on it to equip people, and we go deep, and they learn about what the different levers are for their resilience. And what we
Mhm.
know is resilience is a state, it's not a trait. It's not something you either have or you don't
Yeah.
have. It's something that will fluctuate. And I'm sure a lot
Mhm.
of your listeners will know about the well-being spectrum, and we move depending on our
Mm.
risk and our protective factors, and what's going on in our life right now, and our resources.
Yep.
And so it's great to be able to equip people with the knowledge of those levers, so that when they start to feel some symptoms that they're not quite themselves, or they're struggling a bit, or they're feeling overloaded in the workplace, here are some of the things, some of the areas that you might actually focus some resilience on, in
Yep.
order to increase your overall resilience. So I love it. So that's probably the main offerings.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing you right, it's public speaking opportunities
Yes.
plus mental health first aid training and or resilience building workshops.
Yeah.
Um, which is fantastic. I'm a huge advocate of how do you create wellness, and it's actually multiple avenues. And it pleases me to hear, like, I too have gone through the mental health first aid course a few times, and I too have found like there are some gaps. Like we in mind, like obviously, like we have found a good fit. So it's fantastic when people go through the first aid course because they've got a more understanding of base level of literacy. And of course, through the interactive theatre angles, we try and tailor it so that we're working with a workplace, so that we're addressing what the psychological hazards are, so that we can actually demonstrate the skills into action. Let's actually put it in place. Let's show you how early intervention actually works so that they can walk away from it, not just knowing it, but experiencing it and modeling it, so that we can continue to build these prevention skills. So I hear you. Let's go up the stream. Let's build these skills before they happen.
Absolutely. And I just want to be talking more to organizations around, um, looking at this holistically because, often it's like, they can bring me in for a keynote, but that on its own is not going to make a difference if there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of psychosocial hazards in the organization. So
Yeah.
I heard something really cool at the conference, which was like
Mm.
sometimes organizations can feel totally overwhelmed by this topic, especially those newcomers that we're talking about, we
Okay. Yep. Yep.
talked
Yep.
about, and I wish I could remember who to attribute this to, but they were saying just first step, start with compliance. Just what's the minimum you need to do, and then grow it from there.
Yep.
And then I went to a great session yesterday. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember her name because she was amazing. But we were looking at like how your existing HR processes fit into all of this stuff, and
Yes.
doing great
Yep.
HR process and OD processes actually are going to create positive mental health outcomes as well.
Yeah.
And so
For
you
sure.
don't actually have to reinvent everything. You don't, look at what you've got already that you can leverage from as well. So I
Mm.
loved that. And I was
Oh,
like,
what great tips.
yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah,
so
what
cool.
great tips. We're finding similar that I mean some businesses are may be a bit more savvy in this space, like may have mental health policies, and other businesses may not, and some small businesses don't, they can't afford the time to even think about it still,
Mm,
perhaps. But we're
yes,
actually finding, in that HR space, just updating some terms and conditions to include wellness. Like you're familiar with the first aid structure, the mental health first aid structure of the ALGE, seek help,
yes,
etc.
of course.
This what we've tried to do with many workplaces is make them aware that we can put some wellness terms and conditions in place just to let clients, customers, and stakeholders know that as a workplace, we're all agreeing to this wellness culture and we all have these skills of if we see these signs, we will be needing to act in accordance of that framework. So if there is a mental health concern, we're referring it over. That is the only role that they play. But bringing that conversation up front has given permission for staff to feel like they can lean back on it if they need it. So it's not
Yeah,
going to come out of the blue. They feel a bit safer knowing that we've already told you that if we see these signs, our job is to refer. Just putting a few more boundaries in place there has just helped, weight off the shoulders.
yeah, absolutely. Something you just said before triggered another really fabulous comment, I reckon, at a conference, which was not having enough time.
Yes.
Like, we don't have time in our business for this. We don't have time. And the response was, if you don't have time for this, you actually don't have a viable business. Like,
Yeah.
this is
Wow.
actually a mandatory,
Yes.
not mandatory, although we're becoming that way, obviously, but a critical and essential component of running a business. Like, this is your people. And
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was like, yes, that is so true, you
Oh,
know?
yeah. I haven't thought about it from a viable business perspective, but I was thinking you can't afford not to. That's just an excuse that's
Mm.
popping up. Um, but I guess I'll just, you've given us so many tips and tools that I've kind of like ran out of any more questions for you. But I just, there was something you said that I was going to share. Oh, it's gone. Nope, it's gone. If there are people out there hearing this, how can we help you? Who are you specifically looking for, or what are the great clicks for collaborations with you?
Ah, goodness. Okay. So look, I'm passionate about working with workplaces and helping them to make progress on this, to have that holistic approach, to
Mm.
create a network of mental health mental health champions in their organization, to move beyond that compliance that we often see. Oh, we've got an
Yes,
EAP, check. We don't want this
yes.
to be about compliance, because you're
Mm,
never going to get the full benefits that you can from this, and create that really safe workplace, if it's just a compliance activity.
yeah,
So yeah, I think, yeah, like, I don't know. I'm sort of thinking, oh, I don't, where would I fit in a collaboration space? But
gotcha.
th- that's an area I'm really interested in. And, I'm passionate about people knowing what to do if they notice anyone struggling in their world,
Yeah,
anyone,
yeah.
and even just slight signs. I
Mm,
think if we can all develop the skills to listen to each other,
mhm.
this world will be so much
Yeah,
better, so much more fun, so
yeah.
like so much more fulfilling experience, but also it would
Mm,
be safer for everybody, because I
mhm.
think being heard is so powerful, and hearing somebody, holding a space for someone to be heard, is like a
Mhm.
gift that we can give. But
Totally. Mm,
beyond that, it can actually be the catalyst for them having a shift, for them, even like, I just think sometimes I'll say to my partner, I'm actually struggling at the moment. I'm feeling
mm,
quite overwhelmed. I've got, this and this and this going on, and I
mm,
think I could really do with a bit more help right now. But sometimes even just verbalizing what is going on
mhm.
actually helps shift it. And so I'm like, that's really powerful. And if we can let people know that we care, if we can
Yeah.
just, it doesn't even matter if we get the right words right. And like, what are the right words anyway? I mean, Algae gives us a great framework,
Mm,
but it's really about the intention. Like, the
yeah.
people will feel your intention. I'll never
Mm,
get Maya Angelou's quote right, but it's not what you say, it is how you
mm,
make people feel. And if you can be with somebody, truly with them, be present,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it can be life changing, but it's incredibly powerful, make a real difference in someone's life, and help them to get back on track
Yeah,
more quickly.
absolutely. I think the answer is you are willing to collaborate with anyone in this space.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I'm pretty passionate about it.
for sure. And I can definitely see you do offer points of difference. Um, and we'll share all your information, etc., for anyone that wants to be in contact. I
Yeah.
now remember what I was going to say before.
Okay.
It was from that comment that you mentioned that some workplaces could be new into starting to explore this space. And um, what I was going to share is, you know, to invite businesses in to explore what the different options are. You had mentioned it's not just the ticker box of the EAP system, because if anyone understands that reference, they would understand they're ticking the box to crisis. They're waiting for a crisis to happen and putting in that service in play, which is not the full duty of care of creating the right wellness culture and structures around that. It's a part of it, but it's waiting for something to happen first, you know. I've helped some businesses to understand, well, what is this wellness space? What do we as individuals actually have capacity to do? Because I hear you just painted such a beautiful picture of someone who has listening skills, who can take on those roles. And I know that we've spoken in this conversation about suicide and suicide prevention stuff, and you and I are probably quite well equipped, and it's second nature to us, you know. No doubt anyone that has a chance to stand next to you in those times of need are in such great hands, you know.
Yeah.
But the average person may feel a bit daunted about that need to fill that space and ask those questions. And I guess I just wanted to emphasize that you don't have to. Like, I've worked with many workplaces to help them understand, well, here is what mental health first aid is. And yes, it's great that you can get your team skilled in it, but you still have to build awareness of what the psychological hazards are in that workplace. And you still have to build some tools for resilient skills, or if you're a workplace leader, you know, present the opportunities that individuals can have access to them, but not just rely on that to be your tick of the box.
Yes.
I know I've attended the Safe Talk session, which is a suicide prevention initiative, and that particular training is all about where being like a first response for suicide. But I have actually spoken to some workplaces, because it's not as simple as just get one team member on your team to have that training and everything is all rosy, like, because it can build that expectation and a lot of need on that one person, you know. Sometimes it's actually okay to set the standard, to say, hey, we're going to set the response to say that every single team member can feel empowered to refer over to the health system. They don't need to be that mental health professional, you know. Or you
Yeah,
can still save
absolutely.
lives. And
Yes.
the danger I find is, if you do have that one representative that's carrying all the first aid training or carrying all the assist calls, is that that person could be overloaded. And what happens the next day when that person isn't there for team, you know, then there's those crises that could come in that could create more hazards. So yeah, don't be overwhelmed by it all. Just take a step forward.
Yes.
And there are
Yeah.
plenty of people out there that have had experience and know various different programs, and one's going to work for you, one may not work for you, you know. But you're in good hands if you're starting to ask these questions. It's a good start.
Yes, yes, absolutely. You know, like as a country, you know, and obviously this doesn't just apply to Australia, you know, we have achieved so much when it comes to physical safety. You know, like years ago, it was, you know, decades ago, people regularly died, you know, in accidents at work, and we've made some great progress. And this is the next frontier. And, you know, it, I'm not sure whether, you know, it should be well-being or, you know, I think well-being needs to sit with safety. And for me, this is more and more, I just felt this is a safety issue. You know, this is a
Mm,
safety issue, and an opportunity for organizations to actually achieve a lot of business benefits, you know, in terms of the engagement and productivity. And you know, there's and you know, more and more there's going to be, especially in this employees market, employees exiting organizations that are not doing this. You know, it's
oh, totally.
you
And
can't afford not to be doing this, because
unfortunately, oh, sorry.
yeah, no,
No,
you'll
I'm too
be
excited.
yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say, unfortunately, things will probably get worse before they get better there, because one thing I just wanted to remind people of is, it sounds like we're just talking offices, you know, headquartered offices, etc. But hang on, there are some real industries like the health system, you know, the teachers in the education, etc., that they're really starting to get to places of burnout. So things may get worse before they get better, and it's not just the offices. You know, it's
Yes, yes,
sectors of all
yes,
shapes, sizes that need to be onto
totally.
this.
Absolutely. And, you know, the average psychological injury claim is, I think it's 26 weeks of work and $55,000. I know, right? It's like and that an aggravation of an mental health condition that may not have been quite at work, equally can become a work cover claim. So
Yeah.
this is a major risk for businesses,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's time to pay attention.
For sure. I guess on that note, to wrap up, just emphasizing one of the stats out there is we are spending billions of dollars in loss of productivity, in the costs of mental health in the workplace due to, absenteeism, the work cover claims, etc. So we can do better.
We absolutely can, Ali, and
Mm.
I'm excited about the future in this space.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'll encourage you all to reach out to Donna if you've resonated or if you'd like to connect. Boy, I'm feeling empowered hearing you and just knowing that like you're a wealth of resource and knowing what you are doing in community. And let's be a bit more proactive. Like, we will be stronger together, and there's going to be some great people in amongst this campaign that you can reach out to, but also more exposure to share what you do, because I'm a firm believer and know the value in it all. So thank you for what you contribute. It's fantastic to hear from you.
Thank you, Ali. My pleasure.
Not a problem, and I look forward to introducing the next story shortly, but I thoroughly enjoyed this session.
Cool.